Alright, so you just got your Samsung Galaxy S20 Alpha Omega Supreme 5 Gangster. You've unboxed it, and you've also done the initial setup, you've signed into your accounts, downloaded your apps. What's next? So in this video, I am going to go through some personalization tips and tricks, some optimization things that you can do to your Samsung Galaxy S20. I'm not going to say the full name anymore, but this applies to all One UI 2 devices and maybe some other Android devices too. The beauty of Android is that you can customize a lot of options. No two phones are ever set up alike, so I mean, you can follow all my tips or you can kind of make them your own, and that's the beauty of having an Android phone. So let's go ahead and get started with the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra. So welcome to the video. My name is Richie, and before I go ahead and get started, I wanted to mention that a lot of you are watching without subscribing. So if you go below the like button, there's a red subscribe button that you can click, and that would greatly help out the channel, so I'd appreciate it if you could do that for me. And while you're at it, you might as well turn on notifications. Now, the first thing with setup is I always set up my phone as brand new. I never restore data from it, mainly because if you do a backup, you end up restoring all of the previous bugs and niggles that you had with your previous phone, and you know, it just carries over unnecessary crap, let's call it. You've got a new phone, you might as well enjoy the new out-of-box experience. And it acts kind of like a detox and gets rid of everything that you probably didn't need with your old backup. So you start from scratch, and that's, in my opinion, the best way to go about things. I've also gone ahead and downloaded some apps that I normally use on this phone. I'll probably end up adding to that in the future. And the other thing that you can do is check for updates. So if you go into settings, software update, download and install, it'll check for updates. I actually already did the software update. I mean, to be honest, there might actually be another one. But yeah, I've updated my phone before this, and there we go, software up to date. And then we can go ahead and dismiss this notification. Now, let's start with the home screen layout. So out of the box, it actually comes with a black wallpaper, but I changed it to this one because I wanted it to look a bit more vibrant for the video. And then it comes in a four wide grid layout. So if we press and hold, we can go to home screen settings. Home screen layout will have separate screens, but you can also add a separate apps button if you prefer that. My home screen grid is going to be 5x6. This is a giant phone. You might as well take up that real estate. We'll go ahead and save that and go back into home screen settings. We'll also change the app screen grid to 5x6. Cool. For app icon badges, I prefer having a dot. It looks a lot cleaner that way. Lock home screen layout. If you like the way it is and you often accidentally rearrange your home screen, tick that. Add apps to home screen if you install an app. I like to have that off. Swipe down for notification panel. This one is a good one. So if we are on the home screen and we swipe down, instead of opening the app drawer, we actually open up the notification panel, and that's just a lot more convenient. And again, this is a big phone, so having to reach all the way up here is not ideal. You can also set to rotate to landscape mode if you want to have your phone landscape. Maybe you've got a car dock or something like that. You can do that as well. Now, personally, I stick with the regular One UI 2 launcher. I don't mind it. It's just simpler for me. But if you do use a custom launcher, you can probably ignore these and install that first and get that all up and running. The other thing I'm going to do is disable Samsung Daily. It's pretty much useless to me, so just press and hold again on the home screen, swipe over to the left, and flick that switch, so now when you swipe over, it doesn't go over to that. The other thing is if you swipe up into the app drawer, you'll see that apps are kind of arranged in a real awkward fashion. We can go ahead and sort this by alphabetical order, and this makes so much more sense to me. And then you can add folders in where necessary. Going back to the swipe down for notifications, we can also customize this and go quick panel layout, show brightness on top, and then I like to turn off show media and devices, so you can now change your brightness without having to swipe all the way down. One thing I like to do as well is rearrange my quick toggles in a fashion that makes sense to me. I probably won't do that now, but something that I like to do. Now that we've got the home screen and the notification panel all that to our liking, let's go ahead and rearrange the home screen to my liking. Cool, now with that done, this is how I like to set up my home screen. I've got my most used apps, usually comprising of media stuff. So we've got Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, WhatsApp, and Spotify, gallery, camera, and Play Store on the front. I also replaced the Samsung weather widget with the Google one. I just like it better. And then we keep the Google bar as it is. And then over here I've got some other frequently used apps. And that's pretty much it. I keep it simple. I'll probably also get rid of this page as well. Anything else I need, I'll just go through it in the app drawer. Now, the last thing to do that'll complete this home screen is to change the wallpaper. You've got a ton of decent default wallpapers, but I do like to use my own ones. So I'm going to choose this one here, and we'll do this one for the home screen for now. Just reposition that. Don't really need to worry about that. Actually, I'll move this as well down here. I'm gonna rotate that and then use it as my wallpaper so we can actually see the time. Cool. So now the phone looks a lot more personalized and you know, I've got everything that I need, nothing that I don't use. The other thing that I forgot to say is that I have these apps down here because I don't plan on using this phone for calling and texting, mainly for media stuff. I've got my iPhone for communication, so this is my kind of everything else device. The next thing that we should change is the power key. So if we press and hold it at the moment, we open up this horrendous thing, Bixby. We don't want that. Alright, to change this, what we can do is we can tap that power menu in the settings, side key settings here. Double press is to launch the camera, so if we see a fight going on, we can double tap that and instantly record some video. And then press and hold, we'll go to the power off menu instead of Bixby. So if we press and hold that, boom, no more Bixby, and that is a good thing. Right, now we're going to dive into the settings menu, and usually how I like to do this is once I've got everything all together, I will go through each one of these settings one by one, but I'm going to gloss over a lot of the basic or a lot of the more customizable things that I like to change. First thing is, since we've got a dual SIM phone here, you go to SIM card manager. I've not got any SIM cards in here at the moment, but you can change your preferred SIM card for calls, text messages, mobile data, dual SIM always on, lock plan settings, all that kind of stuff. So if you've got two SIMs in here, you can go ahead and change that. You might also want to set your data limits and all that if you've got a capped plan. In sound and vibration, you can also change the ringtone for each SIM card. So you might want to do that so you know which SIM is ringing. This is a good thing because you can't change it on the iPhone, so I'm glad that this feature is embedded. I mean, even if you don't have a dual SIM phone, you might as well change your ringtone because everybody, I swear to God, uses this. Oh, that's very loud. Everybody uses the over-the-horizon ringtone, and it is confusing at times, so I'm just going to change it to that in the meantime. And your notification sound as well, everybody seems to use this one. Got some different ones this year, but I'll change all this stuff later. The other thing that we can do is change our system sound and haptics. So thank God that touch interactions is disabled out of the box. If you were old school Samsung, you would know that this is the first thing you would ever turn off once you unbox your Samsung. I'm going to turn it off with the keyboard because I prefer to feel the haptics instead of hearing the click. You can also change vibrations if you're not a fan of those. I quite like the haptics, so I'm going to leave them on. You can also go into sound quality effects, and my phone came with Dolby Atmos turned off out of the box, so I mean you might as well turn it on. And then you can also change your equalizer. I'll probably play around with it a little bit later on, but what I like to do is increase the low end, keep it kind of flat in the middle, and give it a little peak at the highs. I love my bass. The last thing to do in the sounds is to set Do Not Disturb. So I'm not really getting any notifications, but I might as well turn that on just in case it interrupts me. We can turn on as scheduled, and what does this, start at 10 and end at 7 AM the next day. I'll probably end it at 6 and we'll have that on. So Do Not Disturb will turn on automatically. This is good to just wind down and not have your phone wake you up in the middle of the night. Right, next thing, notifications. So you'll probably want to go in individually and set all your app notifications once you've signed in and installed and done all that stuff with your apps, just so you can disable pointless notifications or enable sounds for particular notifications you don't want to miss. The other thing that we can do is status bar. So this will just essentially show little icons if you've got notifications. I like to set it to 3 most recent, that's how it comes out of the box. But you can set to all notifications, so it'll populate the whole bar. And you can also turn on show battery percentage, so you can have your battery percentage up at the top right. I actually like to turn this off. I have learned to live without a battery percentage, and if I want to see it, I'll just swipe down anyways. Another thing that we can customize is edge lighting. So this is the default lighting effect, it'll just light up the edge. A bonus tip is to install Good Lock from the Galaxy store, and so you can have your camera ring as the edge lighting, which is pretty nifty. I'm not going to do that now, I'll probably do it a little bit later. Alright, so display settings. This is a big one, especially for the S20 lineup. Out of the box, it comes set at full HD plus with the refresh rate set at 60. I've bumped mine up to 120 Hz because that's the only way to kind of use the S20 Ultra. But if you do want to conserve battery life, you can set it to either Full HD or WQHD. I would actually, might as well bump it up and keep it at 60 Hz. Another cool thing you can change is dark mode settings. So we can turn on as scheduled, it'll come out of the box in light mode. And I like to set mine sunset to sunrise. So I suppose the rest of this video is going to be in dark mode. Screen timeout is also another thing you should change unless you are fine with the standard 30 seconds. I like to set mine to 2 minutes. It's a good compromise between not letting your screen die out too early, but also turning it off when you don't need it. Font size as well is another thing that you can customize. I like to set mine just one above the smallest because I prefer to see more text. Also, don't be the guy that increases all the font all the way, that just looks really ugly. Right, a big one is the navigation bar. So by default it comes with this setup, so you got the back, home, and recently used apps. I actually prefer to use the gestures. And with One UI 2, you have your swipe gestures. It's kind of like meant to emulate an iPhone, so if you swipe up from the bottom, that was a very laggy animation, but if you swipe up and hold, you'll get your recently used apps, and then you can swipe from either side for back. You can also set it to the original One UI where you can just swipe from the bottom, and then you also have gesture hints, so that's just the bar. You can either enable or disable it. On a Samsung, I like to disable it, don't really need to see it. So now we've got our gestures all set up. Another kind of forgotten feature is the edge screen, so you can put your frequently used apps if you want to access them quickly. If you're using the back gestures, the swipe gestures, you probably want to set your edge panel a little bit higher, and you can also, where are we going? Let's actually go into the edge screen, and we can add things like weather, tools, smart select, and then we can customize our handle settings. So I like mine on the right. We'll have it near the power button, and transparency, set it high because I don't really want to see it. So if I swipe here, I'll get my edge panel. The last thing to customize in the display settings is your always on display. So if we go to always on display, by default it'll be tap to show. That's probably the best one to conserve battery life. You can also change the clock style. I actually quite like the default one, or you can change it to like an image or a GIF. I'll just set it to this one for now. You can also change the color to be multicolored or just a solid color. You'll obviously save the most battery by going white. Actually, I don't know, because white actually uses more energy, so I don't know. So play with that and take it for what you will. I also like to show music information. You can also set auto brightness or adjust it manually. I believe there is a way to be able to change the orientation settings from the always on display itself, but I will have to probably play around with it. It might be another clock style that you can do it with, not the default one. Alright, now let's go into lock screen settings. So we have our screen lock type, and let me just enter in my PIN real quick. So you can obviously set this was probably done during setup. And you can also set face unlock and fingerprints. Why is it going really dark on me all of a sudden? If you did want to add more fingerprints, you can do so in biometrics and security. Usually I've got my thumbs and my index fingers set up for the fingerprint sensor. Use your toes if you want to, but probably not ideal. Let's go back to lock screen. You can also set up smart lock if you have a Bluetooth device or trusted location or something that you want to set it for. Secure lock settings as well. Right, so we have the lock automatically. Usually it's set to 5 seconds, which is fine for me. Lock instantly with side key, so if you tap that, it'll automatically lock. I like to turn on lockdown option and also auto factory reset. If someone does actually steal my phone and try to get into it, they won't get away with my data and they'll probably have a bricked phone they can't use. Lockdown option essentially just locks your phone, so you have to put in the PIN. You can't use your biometrics to unlock the phone. Face widgets, also a good one to enable if you want to see the weather and music and all that. I'm going to turn off Bixby routines and have music and weather there. You can change your clock style for the lock screen and always on display if you want to, I don't know, change it to S8 style. You can also add contact information on the lock screen as well, so if you want to put your name, put a mobile number, or put a message for someone who might want to creep on your phone. The other thing that I like to do is make sure notifications are set to icon only and hide content because you don't want anyone creeping on your notifications. Lastly, shortcuts. This is a fun one, so we can go floating button instead of the corners. For my left shortcut, I like to set it as a calculator, and for the right shortcut, I like to set it as Spotify. And essentially how this works is if you go to the lock screen and you unlock or wake your phone, press and hold on the fingerprint sensor and stay on that, you can drag up to quickly get to an app. If you've got face unlock enabled, this will turn into a little shortcut button, and then you can have that functionality, so I can launch Spotify and quickly get to my music from the lock screen as well. Right, so advanced features is a fun one to dive into. There's that side key option, but we've already set it, so we don't need to worry about it. This is just a whole bunch of like extra kind of features. You've also got your reduce animations if you want to do that, smart pop-up view, so your notifications pop up. You also can change your screen recorder settings, motions and gestures, tap and lift to wake enabled by default, so that's good. You can also turn on smart stay. I'm going to keep that off. Smart alert, when you pick up your phone it'll vibrate if you've got a missed notification. Easy mute, put your phone face down, it'll disable the ringtone. Palm swipe to capture, so we can I don't know, I think that's the gesture. I've actually turned it off there, and then swipe to call, send text messages. One-handed mode is actually off by default, but what we can do is we can turn that on, and since I've got gesture set up, if we swipe down, that brings up the one-handed mode, especially, this being a bigger phone, it comes in handy if you need to access the top part of the screen and you can't be bothered moving your hand. So this brings us to digital well-being, and you can obviously discipline yourself and set screen limits, app limits, all that kind of thing. I like to set limits for social media apps like Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and all that, so I'm not wasting all my time on them, and that'll just, help you live a more healthy digital lifestyle. It's completely optional as well. If you don't care, don't need to worry about it, but if you do want to look out for your time spent on apps and stuff that are just unnecessary, that's a good one to get into. Now the last one is device care. So this is where you can just make sure that everything's running right. Battery settings, so this is learning its usage patterns at the moment. If we go into security, it's deactivated, so you might as well activate it. I haven't actually had it pop up with anything, but it's just nice knowing that your phone is secure. And then if we click the 3-dot menu, we can go show icon on app screen, so that'll give you quick toggle to your device care. And then if we go to advanced, we can set auto optimization. This is on by default, which is fantastic. Every morning at 3 a.m. it will close or auto optimize, close high power apps, delete unnecessary files, and I'll just enable this close apps to free up memory, because sometimes there's just apps that you don't even need open, Auto restart is actually one thing that I like to enable. Usually I set it for like a Saturday at 3 a.m. so your phone will restart automatically, and obviously, you know, we know that we should be restarting our devices every now and again. And optimize settings, I'm going to leave this off because I don't like it to be changing my brightness and screen timeout and all the rest of it. If we go to battery, we can also go to power mode, and that is where you're going to find your adaptive power saving. So that's where you let AI take over and change your power mode to how you're using the phone. I like to keep this off. Again, I don't really want the phone interfering with my usage, and S20 Ultra has a 5000 milliamp hour battery with quick charge, so I don't need to worry about battery life. If you do want your battery to last longer throughout the day, might be worthwhile thinking about enabling that. You'll also find your screen on time and app usage and all that here. The other thing that we can do is wireless power share battery limit. So if you want to increase the threshold to where power share is enabled, you can do so in this menu here. Alright, and that's pretty much it. I suppose the last thing that I need to do is to set my lock screen wallpaper, since I didn't do that when I was setting my home screen wallpaper. And of course, I'm going to have to change it to an Alice in Wonderland wallpaper. That's what I've got on all my other phones, so I'm going to keep the tradition going. There we go, so much better. So that's pretty much it for the video. Let me know if you have other tips and tricks or other little quirky settings that I might not have touched on here. And also let me know how you like to customize your phone if you've got a Galaxy phone or another Android phone. iPhone users, you can't really customize your phone, so I suppose this isn't for you. But yeah, more S20 Ultra content to come. Again, if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. If you've seen this video to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate you sticking around. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.